Hey everybody, we are live. Welcome to another edition of Boston Straight Shooters. I'm your host for this evening, Steve, aka Negative Ned. Frank is away again on business, so we'll do our best to hold down the fort for him while he's gone. This is a show we get you caught up on Boston sports, Patriots, Bruins, Celtics, and Red Sox. We have a lot to get to today, so without further ado, we will get started. Let me post a link so you guys can join the show. And we're going to talk about. Hold on one second. We're going to talk about your first place New England Patriots. I can't believe it. I'm sure a lot of people out here can't believe it either. But thanks to Buffalo doing us a favor and losing to Atlanta Monday night, the Patriots, because they beat Buffalo the week before, have the tiebreaker. So both Buffalo and the Patriots are 4-2, but the Patriots get the tiebreaker. They're in first place. It's the first time they've been in first place since Tom Brady was here in 2019. So it's been quite a while, and there's been some bumpy years here the last couple of years. So this is definitely exciting, and I hope they can keep it going. I'm sure everybody hopes they can keep it going. They just have to, stay consistent with what we've been talking about, and let's see what they can do. We'll give a recap of the game. What I want to do first is give. Let me find it here. I want to give you a recap of what I thought the keys to the game would be, and what my three takeaways are, because me and Frank usually give our top three takeaways of what we saw. So I have the keys to the game that I had last week was, number one, they couldn't have a letdown. They can't play down to the Saints level and lose. Stop fumbling the effing football. The running backs did not fumble, but Drake May did. Luckily, it was recovered. So at least it wasn't the running backs this time. And I said they needed to stop Alvin Kamara. And for the most part, they did. He only had 10 carries for 31 yards and 5 receptions for 45 yards and no touchdowns. So they did a pretty good job there. Now for the top three takeaways. It was really a tale of two halves. In the first half, the Patriots offense, looked kind of unstoppable. They put points on the board. And in the second half, they could hardly move the ball, or they kept beating themselves. And so, they couldn't run the ball. It just looked like, it was like Jekyll and Hyde. It was like, a complete 180 from what we saw in the first half. So they only scored 3 points in the second half. Luckily, the Saints couldn't score either. So it didn't hurt the Patriots, but that was one of the takeaways I had. Drake May on the long throws, he's on point, man. And, for all the talk we had about Mac Jones being here over the last few years with he's got a noodle arm and all this. Drake May does not have a noodle arm. I can tell you that. That boy can throw. So that was one of the things I took away. And then the last one, and this is, an obvious bone of contention with everybody watching any game across the NFL, is the screw job calls by the refs on the pass interference calls, one of which took away a 61-yard touchdown from Pop Douglas. We're going to get to that in a little bit as we break down the game. But these refs are getting worse, and they're not getting better, and it's extremely frustrating. So we'll get to that. Just to recap how the game went. Again, they deferred the kick. I don't like that. I hate it. I really wish that they would not stop doing that. They did it again. Guys, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to defer the kick and get the ball in the second half yet. I don't understand why you guys don't take the ball first, try to put points on the board right away, and stop playing from behind. They deferred the kick. The Saints went right down, and they got a field goal. Luckily, we held to a field goal and a touchdown, but there was a big pass play to wide receiver Olave with Kyle Duggar covering, missed the coverage there, and gave up a big play, and it allowed the Saints to score on the opening drive. And I said it last week. I'm going to keep saying it then until they listen. You're not allowed to defer the kickoff till you win the Super Bowl again. That's what I'm going to say about that. You're not good enough yet, or you're not, or I'll say maybe until Drake May is good enough where he's in Tom Brady mode, and he's good enough that it doesn't have an effect. But for right now, you're not there yet. You got a long way to go. So I really hate that, deferring the kickoffs. And then Patriots' first possession, Stevenson ran for 4 or 5 yards on the first run. Then he got stopped for a loss. He got stopped for a 4-yard loss on the next carry. And then Drake May hits Pop Douglas for a 53-yard touchdown. The Patriots go up 7-3. And that's how you answer back. That was a good drive. Real good play by Drake May and Pop Douglas. Pop Douglas, who was basically invisible through the first few games. 5 catches for 13 yards through 3 games. 3 or 4 games, whatever it is. He finally came through, and he's got speed. So they got to find a way to get this guy the ball. It goes without saying. The next drive, the Saints got to the Patriots 45-yard line, and Harold Landry left the game. He got his leg crunched by friendly fire, as I call it. Somebody on the Patriots rolled up on his ankle. He did end up coming back later, which is good. But they, one of the few times that they couldn't stop Alvin Kamara to get up 6, he ran for 6 yards on first down to the Patriots 32. On 3rd and 5, there was a big pass play to the 4-yard line. It got nullified by a holding call, thankfully. The Saints shot themselves in the foot, and they got a lucky break there, and they had to settle for a field goal. So that made the game 7-6. I think the Patriots, I got to say that they're doing the and I watched the talk shows and listened to sports radio and so forth around here, and they do the same thing we all do. It's the bend but don't break defense. They give up whatever yards you want between the 220s, but once they get in the red zone, they're making it harder for you to score. And I'm fine with that. If you're gonna, it's been a winning formula for them for all the Super Bowl years. They had that bend but don't break mentality, and you can hold them to field goals and not give up touchdowns. Those are wins. The way I see it. So bring it on. I mean, they're going to give up big plays. All defenses give up big plays. That's the way the league is designed. They also take a lot of big plays away, which when we get to that, I have something I want to mention that, which is coming up right here. So on the Patriots' second possession, May hit Hooper for a 5-yard gain, and then he threw a 61-yard bomb to Pop Douglas, which was wiped out by a phantom bullcrap flag call on Stephon Diggs, who was on the opposite side of the field and barely nudged the guy that he was fighting with on the sideline over there. They were both, put their hand on each other. It was a non-factor in the play at all. The Patriots actually were just about lined up to kick the extra point, and then the flag came in and nullified the touchdown. So, this is where I say, the refs are corrupt. There's something going on, and it's league wide. I'm gonna call it out now before I even get to the rest of the phantom bullcrap flags. There's something going on in this NFL where they don't like big plays. They nullify a lot of big plays. Against in the Detroit Tigers, Detroit Lions, and the Kansas City Chiefs game Monday night. Jared Goff was behind center, ran out to the left to go catch a pass, caught the pass, gets in the end zone. They take the touchdown away, saying he was illegally in. It was illegal motion. He didn't set himself. Take touchdown away. Bull crap call. I don't know how many of those you're going to see in a game. I was watching the Denver Jets game, the game that was in London Sunday morning. I want to say the Broncos had like a long third down. It was like 3rd and 17 or some nonsense. They hit a pass for like, I don't know, 25 yards or something like that. Nope, they called it back for a hold or some flag. It's like, you watch games where the running back will bust one for 20-something yards. Nope, holding, bring it back. They got to stop this. It has to be blatantly obvious for you to call it and nullify these runs and these passes. I mean, I don't get it. So sometimes you look and even the commentators, the guys doing the play-by-play are like, where's the flag? I didn't see anything. On the Pop Douglas touchdown, they have Gene Serator, whatever his name is, the former ref. He's in the analyst booth, and he's like, I didn't see anything there. It shouldn't have been a flag on Stephon Diggs. So, bull crap. I don't get it. I really don't. I'm so aggravated with this. And if they keep making the game about themselves and taking stuff away, you're going to lose viewers, because if you want more scoring, you don't take points off the board. I mean, that's just again, unless it's blatantly obvious. If Stephon Diggs had like grabbed the guy and threw him on the ground, okay, yeah, it's a penalty. But he put his hand on the guy, and that's it. No good. They got to clean that up. I heard this on sports radio, and I'm not the first person to say this either, is that these guys should be investigated the same way the players get investigated when they're gambling. For these guys to be that much of a factor in taking points off the board, you investigated 2 Detroit Lions last year. They both got suspended for placing bets or whatever. These guys, check their phone, investigate them, do the same thing, do it the same way. And, numbers of people that, talk, no, they're not going to do that. They're in cahoots with the league. I believe it because I said it. Goodell is still trying to screw the Patriots, but they don't need any help right now. They're so bad they can screw themselves. They don't have Tom Brady anymore. So he doesn't have to screw them. They can do it on their own. But I think it's still a factor. I think there's something going on with these refs in these games. Kansas City against the Lions had zero flags, not one penalty the whole game. For the first time in a game in like 50 years, no flag. I'm sorry. That tells me that there's something going on there, and they need to be checked. But, like I keep telling everybody, I've been saying it for a number of years now, as long as Taylor Swift is in the box and they're going to show her 50 times a game or whatever it is, they're going to draw ratings, and they're not going to hurt the Chiefs because they don't want the Chiefs to be out of the playoffs because they won't get ratings. Because when the playoffs come, she's going to be in the box, and that's what they want. So that's why they're going to get breaks and they're going to get calls. And the other thing, too, is, that aside, just forget that, put that away. It's a quarterback-driven league. So you want Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. You want Josh Allen in the playoffs. You want the top quarterbacks in the playoffs. So that's what they want. They want ratings. They want these guys in. So the Chiefs, they're not going to get called for the same stuff that other teams get called for. And we had it last year. There was an article that came out, broke it down, and said that the Chiefs are benefiting more in the playoffs. They had half as many calls in the playoffs over X amount of year period than their opponents. It was like 63-31 or something over like a 5-year period or whatever it is, or whatever the number of games was over the last like few years. So they're benefiting big time. And so I don't like that the refs making these ticky-tack calls. They really need to clean this up if you want people to stop thinking that it's rigged, because I think it's rigged. And it's not just taking points off the board or whatever. I look at the number of games that get decided in the last minute or the last few seconds, And back in the day, there would be like maybe one of those a week, maybe two tops. Now there's 4 or 5, there's 6. All the primetime games, almost all of them are never blowouts. So I think there's a thing going on there. Anyway, let me get back to the recap of this game. So they withstand that bullcrap call. May throws a pass to Kyle Williams, who was a 21-yard pass, and it was a makeup call. I think it was a makeup call because they called pass interference on the Saints for him to get that. So they get a first down. Henderson gets a 7-yard run, probably the longest run of the game. And then May throws a pass to Henderson, and then they get a 25-yard touchdown to Keyshawn Butte, and they go up 14-6. They go up 14-6. So that's the end of the first quarter. They go up 14-6 at the end of the first quarter. That's good. So they get 2 drives right off the bat. They score. And that's what I mean about them having like a tale of two halves. They were really kind of on point. Then in the second quarter on the next drive, the Saints' next drive, Spencer Rattler, I mean, the Patriots had him. They had him locked up for a sack, and he got out of it. And then he made a 22-yard pass to the Patriots 31. And then they got the ball down to the 1-yard line, and they had Taysom Hill come in, who's the backup quarterback. He's kind of like a modern day Cordell Stewart. He's like a Swiss Army knife kind of guy. He's playing quarterback. He's running the ball. He ran in for a 1-yard touchdown, made it 14-13. So defense there, they had Rattler sacked. They let him get out of it, and then they let the Saints get down and get a touchdown. But I don't think they really gave – well, and then the next drive, after the Patriots' next drive, they had let's see. They had a couple good runs. Stevenson ran for 4 yards and 7 yards, got a first down. Ned or Pete tonight? Danny. Listen, I don't know. You're gonna have to tune in and find out because there will be some positive Pete. Don't worry, but don't get used to it. So listen, the Patriots on the next drive, they had it. May got chased out of the pocket. He had to throw it away, and Stevenson ran and fell down at the line of scrimmage, and then Bradbury had a bad snap, went right by May, and he fell on for a 14-yard loss. They had to punt the ball. They give it back to the Saints. They got all the way down to the Patriots 26. They get down to the Patriots 21-yard line, and then they try to throw a pass in the end zone for Chris Olave, and they didn't get it. So they put up a field goal, and the Saints actually went up 16-14. So now you gave up the lead. So the defense had a little bit of lapse on those 2 drives where they couldn't stop the Saints. And that's bound to happen. It's not going to be perfect every single game. They did get it cleaned up later on. The Patriots' next possession, they get bunch of passes. They get let's see. I thought there was a 4th down they made in here. Maybe not. But Drake May was making some throws, man. He hit Pop Douglas for a 9-yarder. On 3rd and 1, he hit Hunter Henry for a 12-yard pass for a first down. Then he hit Diggs for an 11-yard pass. So they got 1st and 10 at the New Orleans 29-yard line. Then he threw the ball to Butte for a 29-yard touchdown. Now, here's another thing. They go for the 2-point try. They get encroachment by the defense, which gives them half the distance to the goal. It's basically on the half-yard line. Drake May quarterback sneaks it. Clearly, from where I sat, it looked like he made it by a mile. But the refs said that he didn't make it. So they had to go to the replay booth, and the overhead camera finally showed him going over, and you can clearly see he's over. But these bozos decided to take the 2 points off. So the Patriots get the call, and they go up 22-16, and they go up 20. They stay that way for the half. And then the Patriots get the ball to start the third quarter, and they drive it all the way down. They get a field goal, so they go up 25-16, and the Saints kind of beat themselves a little bit. They had a couple penalties along the way. They had to punt, but here's where the Patriots had a bunch of 3-and-outs. They had 1, 2, 3. They had 3 possessions in a row where they had a 3-and-out. And fortunately, the Patriots defense did a good job. Beginning of the fourth quarter, Marcus Jones, on 3rd and 6 from the Pats 33, with a huge sack, forced the Saints to go for a field goal, so that they put the field goal up, 54-yarder, go up 25-19. And then the Patriots, there was a play in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes and some change left where Drake May hit Butte for 7 yards for a first down, and the referee stopped the clock thinking he was out of bounds. Mike Vrabel had to challenge it. I think there was 2 minutes and 22 seconds left or something. He challenged the call because the refs thought that he was out of bounds, so they stopped the clock. Fortunately, he won the challenge, and they were able to run off the clock the rest of the way. But, this is what I mean about the refs being corrupt. How did they see that he was in bounds still? How did they not see that? So, listen, I don't get it. But, they come away with the W. They're in first place. And they have Tennessee coming up this week, where Mike Vrabel got fired from. Ironically, Tennessee fired their coach on Monday. So I don't think it'll be an easy win. And when you go on the road, none of them are going to be easy anyways. But, people look at the schedule, look in their chops. Oh, the Patriots got, the Saints, Titans, Cleveland, whatever. It's a bunch of wins in a row on paper. Everybody's got them 5-1. But listen, you still got to play these games. They still have to be consistent. They still can't shoot themselves in the foot. They can't fumble the ball. They can't do the stupid things they were doing in the first couple of weeks. And they've cleaned it up a lot, so they got to keep it clean. And you can't take it for granted, regardless of whether they fired the coach or not. You still can't go there, take them lightly, and think that it's going to be a cakewalk, because it's not. So hopefully they'll do the right things and get the W down there. So let's talk a little bit. There's been a bunch of scuttlebutt about Drake May being in the MVP conversation. So I want to touch on that for a second. Give me half a second here. Oh yeah, it's down here. There's another thing too I want to touch on. The Patriots can't run the ball. They've ran the ball 31 times for 73 yards. That's 2.5 yards a carry. Not good enough. But I do like that they tried to run the ball and didn't give up and become one-dimensional, because like we talk about all the time, when the other teams know you're going to be one-dimensional and pass it all the time, they're going to give up for it and stop you. They'll drop 8 into coverage. Whereas right now they're putting 8 in the box and they're forcing Drake May to beat him. And he's doing a pretty good job. So defenses are going to have to start adjusting to the Patriots. And it's either you put more people in the defensive backfield to stop the passing, or you keep guys in the box, stop the running. But, the offensive line, I've been saying it. They're a complete 180 from what they were last year. They are better in pass protection than they are in run blocking. I've been hearing on, sports talk around here that it's the scheme. They're they're not using the right blocking scheme to get these guys open, and they're not the plays that they're running. And I talk to guys in work too, and everybody says the same thing. Why do they have these guys keep running it up the middle? Where's the toss sweeps? Where's the bounce it out to the outside kind of run with the guard pulling? They're not doing any of that stuff. So they gotta get that figured out and make it better going forward, so they don't become one-dimensional later on when they start playing better teams. But getting back to Drake May as part of the MVP conversation, 18 of 26, 261 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. His numbers for this year, there's a lot of comparisons going on between him and Josh Allen. Everybody says that he's got, he's just like Josh. So, my buddy Danny over here sent me these numbers earlier. And Drake May has 1,660 total yards. He's got 12 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 73.2 completion percentage, and a 112.5 passer rating. And Josh Allen has 1,651 total yards, 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 68.5 completion percentage, and a 103.1 passer rating. So, if you were to vote in the MVP race right now between those two guys, and you saw that Josh Allen lost 2 games the way he did, you might be inclined to pick Drake May. Obviously, still too early to tell where he's going to fall, but I think it's too soon. It's 5 games. They're playing weak opponents. They got to play. They got Tampa Bay coming up on the schedule. They're going to have Baltimore later on. They're going to have a couple tough teams. They're going to have Buffalo again. So, continue to put up the numbers in those games, and then we could talk about MVP stuff. I just, and fantastic numbers. I'm not knocking them at all. Believe me, I love it. I mean, this is the leap that we expected from him. It's the leap we wanted from him. He's done a really good job, and he needs to keep it rolling. But I just think that after 5 games, it's just too soon. You got, the other guys that are still in the race. You got Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield. I mean, there's a handful of guys right there. So listen, let's talk later on in like week 8 or 9 and see if his numbers still look this good, and then we can start talking about it and putting him in the conversation. But right now, 6 weeks in to his second year, I'm personally not ready yet. And I get where people are coming from. They'll be like, well, other people in the conversation, it's only 6 games, blah, blah. Why can't he be in it? I get it. But, where they're coming from, in Josh Allen's second year, he wasn't part of the MVP conversation. He's still trying to get his head screwed on straight. So I think that's where Drake May is pretty much acknowledged. Frankie! Pardon the interruption. The mascots are at it again. I could have done without that. Okay. Sorry about that. Didn't see that coming. Nonetheless, let's move on now. We've got enough Patriots talk covered. Let's go to the other first place team in town. The Boston Bruins are in first place. I can't believe it. They are in a 3-way tie with Detroit and Montreal with a 3-1 record. They started out of the gate 3-0. They lost on Monday to Tampa. I'm shocked. I did not see this coming at all. I have to give them credit. They've done a good job. All things considered, where they've been coming from. we recapped last week's game when they played Washington. Jeremy Swayman stood on his head. Stopped 35 out of 36 shots. He was sharp. The next game against Chicago, they won in overtime. That game there, it was like a back and forth. The Bruins scored, then Chicago scored, then Chicago scored again, then the Bruins scored. Then the Bruins got the lead in the third period. Then they gave it up. There was a lot of back and forth. Korpisalo played net. Some of it really wasn't his fault. I mean, Bruins were giving up chances. And he might have gave up one or two softies, but I don't really blame him for the whole thing. But he's got to play better. He's got to be more sharp. And he was in spurts, but, the turnovers and whatnot can't happen. 78, what? Did you spill your beer? No, I didn't spill my beer, luckily. Luckily, they didn't have any impact on that. So, 78 games to go. Yep, there's a long way to go. And listen, I'll give them credit for the first few games, but I still say they're going to miss the playoffs. It's still too early. But I'm encouraged by what they've been able to do so far, given the guys that they signed. And I'm not gonna get into poo-pooing on them right now. Listen, they've battled, they've fought, they've played hard, they've finished their checks. They do need to get a little bit better in their own end, but it's early. And you also lost Hampus Lindholm. I want to say in the second game, got hurt, so he's been out. Luckily, it's not serious, and it has nothing to do with his knee injury that he had last year. But, they win the game in overtime. Fraser Minton, the third-line rookie center, in the overtime, came down a 2-on-1, decided not to pass, thankfully, and just an absolute rip right by the goalie. Absolute snipe, and gets them the W. Gets them the W. What are you trying to do here, buddy? Where are you going? Besides falling off. Again, these guys can't escape. All right, so they get the W, get the 2 points. You had Tanner Jeannot, newly signed free agent, scored his first goal. Lindholm scored on the power play. That's encouraging. They're going to need him to score. And they actually outshot Chicago 33-24, which is something that didn't happen a lot last year. I mean, there was way too many games where the Bruins just couldn't generate any offense. Even in the first game against the Capitals where they got outshot. I forget what the number is now because I don't have it in front of me, but they have to have games where they can't be getting outshot, 10-2 in a period or, 10-0. There was a lot of that last year, so they got to avoid that. But they've done a decent job so far. Korpisalo is a wild card. Well, listen, he needs to be better. He had a decent year last year. 500 record, 2.79 goals against. It's not horrible. But right now, he's given up 3-4. He's got 3.5 goals against. That's not going to work. He's got to be, well under 3 like last year. And he's got to hopefully can carry them to more wins than what he did last year. He can't be 500. He's going to have to. He's going to have to get a few wins above that. So then Saturday they played Buffalo, and they won 3-1. Jeremy Swayman sharp again. I mean, stopped 21 of 22 shots. It was a pretty tight game. The Bruins had a 2-0 lead, and then Buffalo closed it to 2-1 with 11 minutes to go in the third. Some helter-skelter in their own zone as usual. Not out of the question, especially when Buffalo pulled the goalie. And fortunately, they were able to get the empty net with 3 seconds left and get the 3-1 victory. Again, tight game. They're finishing their checks. They're doing their thing. keeping things tight. And this is how it's going to be all year long. And I said it before. You're going to expect a lot of, 2-1, 3-2, 1-0, whatever. That's the way these games are going to be, because the Bruins don't have the firepower to run and gun with everybody. Excuse me. And honestly, I don't want them to, and they don't want to. Then if they play a team like Edmonton and try to run and gun, they're going to get their doors blown off. So they can't have it. And then Monday they played Tampa, and they lost 4-3. Bad game defensively. I forget which goal it was now, but poor bum Zadarov, man. Another costly giveaway. Just passed it right up the middle and gave it right to him. They shoot it in and score. I'm like, dude, you got to use the boards. Like, what are you doing? And I like him. I do like him. I'll say it again since they signed him. I wanted him here. He's got 6'5", 250. He's got the snarl they need that they didn't have a couple of years ago. And I do like him. But, man, dude, you can't have the giveaways. You just can't have them. And there was another goal, and I forget which one it is again. But, the puck went up the boards on the right-hand side, and the forward couldn't corral it. I think it was Fraser Minton. Couldn't corral it, and it rolled up to the point, and then they got it, and they fired it in front. So, those are mistakes that just can't happen. And I think it was early in the third. So, the ice is fresh. Maybe the puck squirted away from the guy. But those are things that you have to correct, especially if you want to be good teams like Tampa. Now, Tampa, I think, lost their first two games, so I think they were looking for their first win coming here. And the Bruins, listen, they fell behind. They fell behind 2-0 in the first period. Notorious Bruin killer Anthony Cirelli. Man, I wish the Bruins had him. Scored both goals. And then they scored 39 seconds into the second period to make it 3-0. So the Bruins are down 3-0. It's almost impossible to come back. They do score. Casey Middlestat scores on a rifle from the middle, in the slot area. Rifles it by the goalie, makes it 3-1. But then, a little over a couple minutes later, the Bruins cough it up 4-1. And so that's 4-1. And then this is hysterical. The Bruins, they got a 2-on-1, and it was a new defenseman. I think his name is Jordan Harris. Came down on the left side, and again, just a snipe, rifled it right by the gloves blocker side on the goalie on the short side. And the coach for Tampa was going friggin' ballistic. He was like, "What the F is going on around here? What the fuck?" He was like flipping out. I was dying laughing. So it tells you that, they're not in a good place either. And so as good as they've been, and I don't think they had their regular start. I don't think Vasilevsky was starting in that. I think they had their backup in there. So I think that might have been part of the issue. But then the Bruins scored again to make it 4-3. And they got as close as that, and then nobody scored in the third. And so they ended up losing by that score. And again, look, I give them Bruins credit. They outshot Tampa 33-23. And Bruins out shooting teams by 10 like they were a couple of years ago. 30-something shots to 20-something. That's saying something. Again, some of the chances you look at them, they shoot it right in the goalie's chest and whatnot, but they still count. They still have to get in the offensive zone and get those shots off. So, as much as we hop on them, that they're shooting it right at them. At least they're shooting it and they get it on net, at least bare minimum. But that being said, the Bruins have a tough West Coast trip coming up starting tonight at 10 o'clock against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And then Saturday they play Colorado. And then Sunday they play Utah before coming back home to face the Stanley Cup champion uh, and former Bruin Brad Marchand at TD Garden on Tuesday night. So, listen, they got a tough 4-game stretch. They have 3 games in 4 nights starting tonight on the road. And it's tough. The altitude in Denver alone is going to play a factor. So, I don't hold out much hope that they're going to do well on this trip. But I've been wrong before. It's not the first time I've eaten crow. It won't be the last, I'm sure. And, if they come back and they win 2 out of 3 or whatever, and, next week when we're here and they've won 3 out of the next 4, then listen, it's, I'll happily eat the crow. Don't worry. But they gotta get better goaltending, and they gotta play better defense. The breakdowns and turnovers that they're making, they can't have. And it's kind of the same stuff that they had last year. Again, it's better. And also you have new pieces, right? You have Jordan Harris on defense, and you have all the guys up front that they signed. I'm not going to name them all off. But, those guys all have to integrate with each other and make it work. So, listen, and I will say this too. Listen, where's Danny? Yeah, you want more positive, Pete? Let me give you this. Where did it go? All right, here it is. The Bruins' penalty kill has been perfect. They have allowed no goals on 14 chances so far to start the season. And I know in one of the games, I want to say it was the Washington game, they killed off a 5-on-3. So listen, for them to be not giving up power play goals this early is encouraging. Now, the power play started off good. 2 for their first 7 in the first 2 games. 0 for 9 in the last 2. So they're 2 for 16, which over the long haul, at 13 or 15% like they had last year, is not going to work. It's not going to be good enough. They have to find a way to rectify that going forward. But the penalty killing's been good. I give them a lot of credit, and it sounds like the guys like playing for Marco Sturm, because if it was like when McGurran was here and they were lackluster and getting their doors blown off right away, so it's different, definitely different than what they had last year. You can see it. They're trying hard. They're skating hard. There's not a lot of lollygagging, like we had last year. So, look, it's early. It's a weekend. You're going to hear me say this a lot. Excuse me. You're going to hear me say this a lot because I keep saying it. The Stanley Cup's not won in December. It's won in May. So no matter what they do between now and December, it can be good. They can win the next 20 games in a row. And I'm going to tell you that it doesn't matter. And they could lose 20 games in a row. And I'm going to say it doesn't matter. They will have a chance to right the ship. So wherever they are after 20-something games, whether it's 10 games over 500 or 10 games under, they'll still have plenty of opportunity. And I will say that this is a factor, and again, it's a factor for everybody. It's a factor for all the teams. The Olympics is this year, and it's a condensed schedule, so that makes it more difficult for everybody. So I don't know. I mean, the Olympics is okay. I think the Four Nations tournament last year was better. But the condensed schedule is going to have a lot of 3 games in 4 nights, 4 games in 6 nights. There's going to be a lot of tough stretches. So, all teams are going to face it. And hopefully, maybe at some point, the Bruins could capitalize on some of that, where, the Bruins will have Saturday and Sunday this weekend back-to-back games, but then later on in the schedule, there'll be, it'll be a Thursday night, let's say, and then some team comes in, they played the night before on Wednesday, and they have to come into the Garden. Something like that, those back-to-backs. The other teams will have it, and it'll affect their legs. And the Bruins will get the upper leg there, no pun intended. But, the schedule is going to be something to watch. And I'm going to be curious to see if or how Marco Sturm rests guys along the way. And the key guys you want to look at when you're talking about resting guys would be David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Lindholm, maybe not so much Swayman, because he needs to play 55 to 60 games again. So he's not going to get a lot of rest in between. But, Morgan Geekie, Pavel Zacha, how many, top six forwards, how much rest are those guys going to get, between now and the Olympics? Or even after the Olympics, how much rest is he going to give? I mean, after the Olympics, if you're making a playoff push, you're not going to give anybody rest. You can't afford to. So maybe they give him a little rest somewhere along the way before the break. But, like Danny says, there's 78 games to go. It's a long way off. April will be here before you know it. And that's really all I can say. Enjoy first place while it lasts. And let's move on to the Celtics. The Celtics finished their exhibition season last night with a chaotic 110-108 win against the Toronto Raptors. I watched some of the game. I didn't get to see it all. And what I saw, I saw most of the first half. And they were shooting pretty good, from what I could tell. Derek White was on fire. They were hitting some threes. They were making plays on defense. Derek White, 33 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 blocks. I mean, the blocks that this guy gets out of nowhere is insane for a guy that's a point guard. They're lucky they have him. Anthony Simons, the guy they got from Portland. Listen, that guy can shoot. If you want to talk about having somebody pick up the offensive slack for Jason Tatum while he's out, this would be the guy, in my opinion. He scored 14 points in this game. There was another game earlier where he had 21. He can shoot. Now, his defense sucks. He can't play defense that good. But you know what? When you're trying to score points, the defense is going to be secondary. Everybody that plays can't be perfect and play both, be good on both offense and defense all the time. It doesn't work that way. So some guys have deficiencies. I mean, Luka Doncic, all the talk of him being an elite scorer, and he is. He can score 30-something a game and drop it on you. But his defense is terrible. But they're not going to take him off the floor because he scores. So this is kind of the same thing. And, yeah, I understand he needs to figure out how to play some defense. But you make up for it by putting other guys around him to make up the difference. So I kind of hope they don't trade him now. And there was a lot of scuttlebutt about the Celtics trying to, save salary cap space and him being one of the guys they were going to trade. From what I've seen, I'm not a fan of that. I think they have a lot of young guys on the team. And so here's a guy that can score. And now you're not putting pressure on younger guys to pick up the slack if you trade him. So I say keep him and put him out there. If he can get you 15, 20 points in a game, and he shoots threes, man. He's a good 3-point shooter. So, and they need that. I mean, this is especially when, Captain, I'm going to start calling him Captain Chuck, Joe Mazzulla, Captain Chuck with the threes, just chucking up threes all game long. 50 threes a game. You're going to need somebody that's a good 3-point shooter, and he's pretty good. So I've been impressed with him. I like him, and I don't want them to trade him. But just to recap where the Celtics finished, they finished the preseason 3-1. They won their first game, which we recapped last week against Charlotte. They lost the second game to Toronto, 107-105. They had a big lead in that game. They had a 20-point lead, and they blew it. They were 10 for 38 from three, 26%, terrible. And I think later in the game, I think more of the scrubs were playing. And I get it. It's like the NFL preseason, right? You don't see the starters. You have to see the scrubs so you can see who's going to make the roster. I think that's kind of what happened. There was a lot of bad play. I mean, there was a lot of bad passes. They were like trying stuff, look like playground basketball, which I'm sure Missoula wasn't happy with. And I wasn't either. I was like, guys, you're not on Central Park playing over here. You guys got to clean this up. But I think that's a lot of the reason why they lost late in the game. Simons had 18 points in that game. Chris Boucher, he's another guy. I'm pretty impressed with him. He's a forward. He got 19 points in that game. I forget how many rebounds he had, but another big kid. Listen, they need big guys too. Losing Al Horford, maybe this is a guy that can hopefully fill in some of that space. They out-rebounded Toronto in that game 54-34. And so they can keep doing that and out-rebounding teams. That's going to be encouraging for sure. They smoked Cleveland in the next game. I'm thinking Cleveland didn't play a lot of their stars. They couldn't have. I mean, and I don't know everybody to find out if they did or not. I wasn't paying attention that much. But, they jumped up to a 70-47 halftime lead. Simons had 21 points in the game. The Celtics as a team shot 18 for 45, 40%. They out-rebounded them 51-43. I mean, when they go in, it's great. 40%, you're going to need that. But when they don't, it sucks. And that game in Toronto last night, actually, I think it was at home. But 15 for 52 from three. 29%. Terrible. That's not going to work. So get ready for it. I know Frank feels the same way I do. We hate the threes. We hate this. I hate that 50 out of 80 shots is threes. And you're making 15, you got to make 20 minimum out of 50 if you want to win games. So there's going to be a lot of these games. There's going to be a lot of games where they blow somebody out by 30 because the threes go in. And then there's going to be other games where they're chucking up the threes and they don't go in and they either win or lose by a bucket. So brace yourself for a long year of that again because Captain Chuck refuses to change. So, and again, it's not just him. Other teams do it too. They come down, they just chuck it up there. Nobody's under the rim. They just throw it up. They don't care. And it's not entertaining. I don't enjoy it. I will say that too. But let me do this too. Actually, I'll save it for the weekly predictions. But before we do predictions, we have Red Sox news. I have to switch gears real quick before we run out of time. I'll try not to run over. We have Red Sox news. Alex Bregman is going to opt out of his contract. He had 2 years and $80 million left on the deal. He wants probably 5 years or 6 years at like $30 million a year. He's 34 years old. I'm not in favor of this. I don't like it. 34 years old, give him a 5-year deal. How many weeks did he miss? 7 weeks with a hamstring issue or a leg issue or whatever the hell it was. Yeah, great in the clubhouse. It's much needed. They need leadership. He definitely provided it. But, not the offensive impact after he got hurt that they need him to be. Finished the year 273, 18 home runs, 64 RBI, I think. You're looking for 25 homers and like 90 RBI for a full, healthy season. How many more of these seasons are we going to get out of this guy? He's had 2 years in a row now with a leg problem. And listen, they can't put him at DH. They need him to play third. That's the whole reason for signing him, right? So, I heard some stuff about like, well, he played hurt when he came back, and that's fine. Kudos to him. I give him credit. Thank you for that. Again, we dog them when they don't. But it's no excuse. You can't pay a guy $40 million for 4 years, and he's missing 7 weeks a year, and he's 34. How about no? When he's 38, 39, and you have the same issue, and you're paying him $40 million. They gotta listen. I've heard this scenario play out too, where they keep the 2 years at 80, and then they tack on an extra 3 years at $30 million a year, and he gets all his money. So they still have him for 5 years. They still have him locked up at 38 or 39 years old. I don't like that. I've never liked signing the older guys like that. Look, if he's 30, give him a 5-year deal. He's 34, you give him a 5-year deal, he's 39, he's useless. You're going to have to eat. How many? Again, these contracts they keep eating. How many more are they going to eat? You can't eat them all. Again, they got a gift when they traded Devers and got that $30 million a year off the books. And right or wrong, But the thing is, they're going to have to pay somebody to come in here if they lose him completely and let him go. And you got to pay a guy $40, $50 million. Probably 40, I'll say. And I'll use Kyle Schwarber, who was with the Red Sox, opted for free agency with Philly, spent the last 4 years there. They got him on a bargain of a deal. 4 years, $80 million or something like that. The Red Sox are not going to pay him $40 million, even if he can play first base. I don't see it happening. So they may be stuck re-signing Bregman, or they get nobody and they got to get another bat. Even if they kept Bregman, they got to get another bat, and they got to get a number 2 pitcher. So they got to spend dough. And John Henry doesn't want to spend it. We've been over this 1,000 times already. He does not want to spend that kind of money. He doesn't want to do it. So if you get Bregman, you may not get the number 2 guy you need. If you let Bregman go and you sign a bat and it's $40 million a year, you still might not get a number 2. Or you might get a number 2, but now you got Marcelo Meyer at third and you still don't have second base fixed. Either way, they need a power bat in the lineup. And I don't think Bregman's the answer because he can't stay healthy enough. And I'm talking about like Pete Alonso from the Mets, 40 home run guy. I'm talking Kyle Schwarber, 56 homers this year. And I want to say damn near, if he didn't hit 50 last year, but you got to pay these guys. Kyle Schwarber is going to be looking for 30 million minimum, maybe more. He'll get 30 to 35 easy. And again, another guy that's going to be looking for a 5-year deal, and he's probably 33 maybe-ish. I forget how old he is, but still, these guys are on the wrong side of 30, and you're giving them 30 million a year. You're going to be crying later. So they got to be careful. Anyway, we'll have a lot of time to talk Red Sox when the hot stove kicks in. I think that's like another month from now or something. So we'll talk about them later. But I'm pressed for time now, so let's get to the poll questions from last week. Let's see. Poll questions from last week. Given the horrible calls by the refs against the Patriots, do you think they should be investigated by the league the same way as the players? Yes, they're crooked. No. Yes, they're crooked 100%. No, 0. I already had the rant about how I felt, and I'm not alone. So that just goes to show you where we are with the refs. And I don't have to say anything else. Next question. With his play so far through 6 games, should Drake maybe be in the MVP conversation? Yes, he should be in the mix, 28%. No, too soon yet, 72%. So a lot of folks are on my side here that we're not ready for it just yet. Dial it back a smidge. But that doesn't mean that he won't be in the conversation later on. Now let's get to the predictions. Last week's predictions. Where were they? All right. I actually got one right. I said the Patriots would win in New Orleans. Again, it's not shocking, but ding, ding, ding. Easy win. I'll take whatever I can get. Next prediction, I said Kayshon Boutte would get 100 yards receiving. Wrong. But I wasn't off by much. He had 93 yards. So he was this close to getting it. He had a good game down there. And I kind of felt he was overdue for a good game. And I didn't realize when I made this prediction that he was returning home to his home state of Louisiana. So, and I think he played at LSU. So, that was a factor. Next prediction, I said the Patriots would get another special teams TD. Wrong. Didn't happen. The return game wasn't as strong as I thought it would be. Next one, Tanner Jeannot gets his first goal as a Bruin. Ding, 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 ding. He did score. And I think he scored the night we were on last week. So, or the night after, whatever it is, he scored his first goal. Next prediction, Victor Arvidsson gets his first Bruins goal. Wrong. He's yet to score in 4 games. He needs to get going and pick it up if he wants to do anything. Last one I had was I thought Bill Belichick would get bought out of his UNC contract. Wrong. Looks like he's staying, at least for this week. So we'll have to wait and see. The jury's still out there. Now for this week's predictions. I say the Patriots squeak out a win in Tennessee. It's going to be a tight game, a 3-point game. I'll say 23-20. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk like some people do. I think they're going to have to scratch, claw, and fight to get the W. I will say Austin Hooper gets his first touchdown. He doesn't have any touchdowns this year. He's got a few catches here and there, but just another guy that's going to come out of the woodwork somehow and get a TD. This prediction is not going to make anybody happy in Bruins Nation. I say they're going to lose 3 of the next 4. I think it's going to be a tough sledding with those opponents that they have coming up. And I'm going to leave the 4th one. Victor Arvidsson gets his first Bruins goal somewhere along the line in the next 4 games. And if he doesn't, and he's got 8 games with no goals, that's a bad sign considering the money that they've had to eat to get him here. You know what, too? Let me throw this in here. This falls in the category of long range prediction. I did this for the Red Sox last year, and I was only off by 1 game. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Celtics will win between 45 and 48 games. They will make the playoffs, and they will be like the 5th or 6th seed in the Eastern Conference because the Eastern Conference is really not that good. I think as long as, and I forgot to mention Jaylen Brown injury leaving the game yesterday. He pulled up with some kind of leg injury. Hopefully it's not serious, but as long as they have him healthy and Jason Tatum can come back in like March, if at all, even without him, I still think that they should be good enough to win 45 to 48 games. They shouldn't be under 500. I hear, a lot of people are like, oh, they're going to lose 50 games. They're going to suck. They're going to tank. No, they shouldn't be doing that. They should be good enough. So that's where I'm going with that. And I'm going to mark it down here. We'll review later at the end of the year. We'll see what happens. Probably be another wrong prediction for Negative Ned. What else is new? But you know what? I'll throw it out there and let's see what happens. Anyway, that's it for the show. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for the support. Thanks for voting in the polls. Thanks for the commentary. Appreciate you guys. Be sure to check us out on YouTube. We'll see you next week. Peace.